선생님 안녕하세요.
Yeah.
Hello, 선생님. In 2012, eschatology, such as the prophecy of the Mayan era, had made the world a buzz. But the world hasn't ended. Nothing has happened. These people have forgotten all about this now. Between the East and the West, I believe there are no opposing views regarding the prophecy of the end of the world. You said that Hucheonsidae is a new era of humanism, which began after December 22nd, 2012. I would be grateful if you could tell me more about this. Thank you. Eschatology. As we studied before, the meaning of the apocalypse can vary depending on how we interpret it. When did the eschatology first begin? Eschatology started 2,000 to 3,000 of years ago. It has existed for thousands of years. At that time, what eschatology did they talk about? Through the revelations. Some leaders received God's revelations that the world is going to end. There was a message from God, but it never was about the end of the earth. It meant the end of an age. Thousands of years ago, they were taught that when a specific period would come, everything would be over. This was the message, but they had misunderstood the meaning of everything will be over. 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, it was time for everyone to live worshipping on something. The entire human race had lived expecting to receive something. The people at that age could not manage the world on their own. Through worshipping, they received many revelations and a lot of spiritual strength. And through religious visions, they saw an end of an era. The message is, when that era arrives, when it is getting closer to an end, there would be a lot of evil things happening. Fights and wars, with many social issues. When Hucheonsidae, previous era up to 2012 ends, everyone argues with one another, insists on their own opinion, and distrusts others. Up until the year of 2012, such things happened a lot, and those wounds are still raw until now. Thus the world stopped growing, and the advancement of our thinking also has stopped. Past spiritual leaders had visions of these things or saw these things in their dreams, in which the world was turbid, with people killing each other, and many evil things would happen. But they misunderstood what they had seen because of their way of thinking. And how they concluded was, the visions were informing the end of the world. So they assumed this would be the end of the world and made a record as such. They recorded that the end of humanity would take place on December 22nd, 2012. There were groups of people who fell into that belief. Religious leaders supported that claim. But I didn't even know about eschatology until I returned to society after my ascetic practice. For 17 years, I was sent to a mountain. Well, actually, I went to die there and studied God's lessons and returned to society after 17 years. I went to the mountain to die, But from that moment, I met the grand nature. I met God and studied the lesson from God. I trained myself by picking up garbage while on my knees without changing clothes I wore. I came out to society with the same clothing I wore after 17 years. With only one clothing I wore, not only did I not change my clothes even once, but I also didn't talk to anyone for 17 years. I did not avid for good food. I only ate food out of the trash as I picked up garbage and never put any fresh and tasty food in my mouth. Why? Because my realization was so big that I realized I had never done any of my duties from the day I was born. Instead, I was so conceited as if I was an outstanding individual, so I couldn't die as I intended. Through repentance, I started picking up trash. Later, I realized that that had been my ascetic practice. When I finished my ascetic practice and re-entered society, I heard of the apocalypse while looking around the nation. So I asked people what the apocalypse was, and they said the earth would collapse and everything would end. From then on, I started teaching people that this didn't mean the end of the world, but instead, it said that the primary stage of human development would finish. So this penniless man has now come to this world to teach the people. As I re-entered society, all God's workers already had built their religious organizations with their given abilities and had been empowered. However, I was sent back to the world only wearing the clothes that I had worn for 17 years. Nor did I own any estate. I was sent penniless. If I had gained something as I returned from the mountain, I wouldn't have suffered this much. But I came out penniless. After hearing about eschatology, as I look around the world, I started teaching people that eschatology is not about the end of the world. It means we have completed the first stage to open a new world, which is the humanistic age in which the heavenly work will begin. We call this the work of heaven and earth. The great work of heaven and earth will now begin. Do not say that the world is over, but instead prepare yourself for the future from now on. We'll open the age of world peace. This was the lesson I gave them. At that time, I didn't have the power to go anywhere, so I only taught in Daehanmingu, South Korea. Only what I have taught to Korean people has been uploaded on YouTube, since there has been no one who invited me to a foreign country. One day, I saw the internet. At first, I couldn't even think that it was possible to teach so many people. When I went to die in the mountain, pagers were being used. Do you know pagers? The time before cell phone was out. It only showed the numbers. I entered the mountain when people first started using the pager. That was on the same day the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul had ended. That's when I decided to die. So I went in, and after 17 years, I was checking around the city. I saw a man laughing and talking by himself while walking down the road. Here and there, I saw others who do the same. I had thought everyone had gone all crazy. They seemed all crazy to me. Because they were walking and talking by themselves. I later realized that they were using an earpiece and talking to others on the phone. I didn't know how the world had changed while I was in the mountain. But when I re-entered society, people were confused due to this eschatology. This lecturing to public began as I taught about this correctly. The world will not end. We have completed our initial development. The era of development will stop, and the new era will begin. The great transformation of heaven and earth will now take place.